All right, so we're going to pick up with chapter 6, and then we'll do chapter 7 next week. That'll kind of finish off the controlling costs within that purchasing cycle, and then we'll move on 8, 9, and 10 for the rest of the semester. Okay. As it is right now, I do not foresee any other times where we will have to have independent study. I may give you an opportunity for your group work to do independent study, but as far as on those particular days, what I'll do is I'll be in my office waiting for anybody to come talk to me about questions you have about the project. Okay, so I might give you at least one more day of independent study for your project. How are your projects coming along? Good, good, okay, cool. So let's talk about chapter 6, controlling food costs in the receiving, storing, and issuing processes. Okay. So what I would like you to do is take a piece of paper out, and on a piece of paper, I want you to draw the purchasing cycle. What's it? Draw the purchasing cycle. Try to do it from memory. It's a 4-step process. If you need some hints, you can look up on the board. All 4 steps are located on the board right now. What's the first step? Of course, it's purchasing. So we have purchasing right here. I'm just going to use a P. Okay. What's after purchasing? Good. Look, receiving, storing, and issuing. So we purchase it, we receive it, we store it, we issue it, and then we purchase again. What's the step between issuing and purchasing? Inventory. Actually taking an inventory of what we have so that we can get back up to car. Good. Look at that. Oh, it's all coming together. All right, so on your piece of paper, I want you to take a moment and I want you to write in order of the receiving process. Okay, so these are all mixed up out of order. Yes, they're alphabetical A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, but the steps are all out of order. So what I want you to do is write the steps down, just using the letter is fine, on your piece of paper.
And this is for receiving?
Yeah, this is the receiving process.
You get unloaded out of the truck and brought into your building before you actually look at your...
Right, right. But your PO is what you actually, or it's a piece of document that you have. So you want, so what you're saying is you want to have that prepared and be ready to go, and then they're actually going to be coming and delivered into the receiving area. So B and G can kind of be flip-flopped, okay? What's next? Good, E. We're going to check the quantity against the specs, the invoice, and the PO, all 3 things. So the invoice is what the driver gives you. What's next?
H.
Okay.
I would say
H.
No, you're gonna put away the groceries and get your credit memo after you put away all the stocks. If you get the
You have to put it, well...
yeah, but you check it, right? Item credit card, letter, everything, or you check quantities. After you check the quantities, you'll get your credit. Then you put it away. You don't put it away and have the driver there waiting for you to come get your credit.
it's A. In the book.
According to the book is A. We check our math, okay? Then, and so this is not for a grade, okay? So calm down if you didn't get a perfect score. It's okay. So A would be the next one, step number 5. Step number 6 would be F, obtain the credit memo. H, then put the goods away. And then finally, everything to the accounting office, okay? Now this is according to the textbook. But if it's your own business, you can put it in your own order. That's the importance of training. That's the importance of understanding the person who is receiving understands the process that they need to go through during this time. There's no confusion. So product doesn't get left sitting out for a while, okay? If you want that product to go, like at least maybe the fresh and the perishable products, the fresh and frozen, refrigerated, if you want that to go directly into storage and then you calculate your math, that's fine. Does the delivery driver need to stand there and wait for you while you are calculating the math or putting away your dry goods? Okay. Now, if we have that credit, if you have that relationship with your delivery driver, of course, I want to check against my invoice, and I want to check to make sure that I want to make sure that I actually have the product, and I'm not going to send it back. Now, up in Maine, they actually have everything digitalized. So the driver has a little Palm Pilot that they can scan, and so essentially, if I have to return something, they would scan my invoice that has the barcode. They would scan the barcode of the item on the box, and then that would automatically issue it as a credit. It's essentially doing step number F right here, but digitally. And then I sign for that, saying that when I sign for this, I've signed that I've received all of this product, and I'm also sending this product back for whatever reason. Okay, and so on that process, I've never seen what they actually do, but I'm sure there's an option to select why is that item being returned, so they can keep all that information. Okay, sending copies to the signed PO and the invoice to the accounting office is important because they're the ones who are going to be paying the bills. Up in Maine, I had a pretty good relationship with our performance food group. And so my boss literally would just every week and a half to 2 weeks would just go in and check her account and just pay the balance. It's kind of the process that went there. I would always, if I had a credit, I would tell her, hey, make sure that this credit gets issued before you pay that balance. That's why it's important to have that. Okay. So what are some required tools in the receiving process you need to be successful in the receiving process?
Thermometer.
Okay, good. We might want a thermometer. Anything else? Okay. Maybe a scale. What else? Okay, we might need a dolly if they don't have one, or if they drop everything off at our. We might have to have one to move things as well. What else? Is that how you spell dolly? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. A what? A pen and a calculator. Good. What else?
Maybe a highlighter.
Okay, good. I like to use a highlighter or a Sharpie pen. I like to use a Sharpie because then on the cans I can write the actual date that I received it because I already have it handy. Okay. What else? The purchase order and possibly the specs list.
Just went over that.
What's that?
I said we just went over that.
Yeah, we just went over that. Exactly. We need to have that purchase order. Okay, because that tells us what we actually ordered, and we can compare that to the invoice. Okay. Training. What we just talked about is a great example of why it's important to train, because each one of you maybe had your own order that you put those in, but there's a specific order that the order needs to be in. And so whatever your business says that you want it to do, if it's your restaurant, great. That's how you're going to run it, and that's how you're going to operate it. You need to train people so that they know how to do that effectively. And then managing vendor delivery schedules. Okay, we may have one main vendor. Like, what's an example of a big food provider? Cisco, P&G, PFG, sorry, Benny Keith, good. Okay, so we might have them as our prime vendor, and they're going to provide us with most of the product. And then we might have Some where we have, if we're doing a farm to table type restaurant, we may have a produce vendor, we may have a meat vendor, we may have a dairy vendor, we may have a fruit vendor, we might have, what's that? Drinks, a drink vendor. I don't know what else we're going to have, right? And so we may even have multiple farms that are providing us produce, or multiple farms that are going to provide us protein. So we need to manage those vendor schedules to make sure that we have somebody there to receive the product, and also ideally that it's not during our rush hour, okay? Not during our lunch rush or not during a dinner rush, so we can focus on that product and we can put it away as appropriate, okay? And then the last thing when we're talking about conserving or managing our cost is anytime there's a discrepancy, we have to address it, okay? So if there's a difference between the purchase order and what is being delivered, that invoice, we have to address it right then. Because if we sign for it, what happens? We pay for it. It's ours, whether or not we actually wanted that amount of product or that at that price. Okay. The credit memo form. Again, this is for Performance Food Group. I'm sure Benny Keith and Cisco are similar. It's going to be primarily digital. They can scan it and automatically then generates a report. So when they get back, this credit is already issued to the account. Okay. But if not, if it has to be done by hand, we have to have a lot of information to make sure that it is applied to the appropriate invoice number. Okay, you can see that right here we have our invoice number. The vendor, who it's issued to, the reason for why it is being returned, and then the vendor's signature as well as my signature. We have to have two signatures on that. My signature says that I'm sending this back, and the vendor's signature, which usually the delivery driver, is the one who signs for that and says that they're receiving it back. All right, so that's receiving. Now we're talking about storing our inventory. Okay, storing our inventory. We have internal security threats to our inventory. Our inventory is dollars. Okay, it is money. We've paid for it. It's sitting on our shelves. If it walks away and we don't sell it, right? If we don't use it to sell anything, our food cost is going to go sky high. I'm not actually getting revenue for that product. Okay, and so if product is just walking out the door for whatever reason, we want to make sure we're managing that. Okay, so we have purchase orders, right? That we do when we want to actually order something from Benny Keith or from Cisco. We can do something very similar in our own businesses called a requisition sheet. I think I've shared with y'all the story about the A1 bottles at the Sheraton Gunther, right? I had to get 2 A1 bottles for dinner service. I had to talk to my manager. My manager called security. I had to take a requisition form, meet security at the locked cage, and then security went in and got me 2 bottles of A1 sauce. They signed that they gave it to me, and then I go on my way just to get 2 bottles of A1 sauce. And you think, wow, that's a lot of work for 2 bottles of A1 sauce. But those are really small bottles. If I was dishonest, I'm not. But if I was, I could easily slip that in my pocket. I might need it. Hey, I'm having a cookout with all my friends this weekend. I'm going to do steak dinner. There's A1 sauce right here. I don't need to go to the grocery store and buy it. Or, oh my gosh, I forgot to get A1 sauce for my steaks for tomorrow night. It's my special anniversary dinner. I want to make sure I have it. I've got all my grocery shopping done except my A1 sauce. I forgot it. Oh, that's okay. Let me just put this in my pocket. Okay? Okay? And so, you know, that adds up over time. And so we can do, for our internal security threats, which is our employees, we can actually have a requisition form where they actually have to come and request the product, and then we have to give it to them. It's very controlled. Okay? Bar service, and bars are really is something that you can definitely control. We'll talk about that in the beverage section, the beverage chapter. but that is something that is easily controlled in the beverage side, okay? As far as keeping par stock off the bar, the number of bottles that are there, and whatnot, okay? So, this is something that we can look at. You know, we have our perpetual versus our actual inventory. Mo called that AVT, right? Actual versus theoretical. We're going to use the term perpetual inventory. So perpetual is constantly updating. So our perpetual inventory right here, let's take a look. What is our opening inventory? What do we start with?
Last night's.
Okay. We start with last night's closing. And in this case, our example, what's our opening inventory? 0. We have nothing. We started with nothing. So I come in the morning, and I say, you know what? This is my New York steaks. I walk in. Oh, we sold out last night. That's awesome. So tonight we start with 0. But I'm going to have them prep for a certain amount, okay? And so typically what we do, so we take our opening inventory plus our items received. So in this case, I'm going to ask my prep cook, hey, I want you to prep 50 New York strips for today. See where we're at right now? 50. So our items received. Our items sold, okay, we're going to subtract that. This red parentheses is a negative number, so you add a negative, which is essentially subtracting, okay? So opening inventory plus our items received minus what we actually sold, okay, gives us our ideal ending inventory. That's our perpetual, okay? Any adjustments? So if we sold, if we had something burned or if the steak wasn't cooked to temperature, we would have to, again, also take those out as well, okay? So our ideal is 30. What is our actual inventory?
25.
So my actual, this is perpetual. And then the 25 is our what? Actual or physical? Physical means I can actually go in and touch it. I can count it. I can see it. Okay? So my ideal minus my actual, I'm 5 short. Is that a problem?
Yeah.
For a New York strip? Absolutely.
So it's gonna be good tonight.
Okay? Absolutely. So as a manager, now it's your responsibility. Now you can't just go and start accusing all of the chefs. Why are you eating my steaks? Okay, you can't do that. You have to kind of think critically. What could possibly be wrong? And you think back on the shift. Oh yeah, David keeps forgetting to ask his guests what temperature they want their steaks cooked, and he had 3 remakes. Well, now I'm only short 2 steaks. So where are my other 2 steaks? Okay? So if there is something that is going on in our business, we need to make sure that we're staying on top of that. Okay? If our employees think that we're not staying on top of it, if we're not doing that physical inventory, then they're going to start slipping those bottles of A1 sauce in their pockets. Oh, they didn't notice that this bottle was missing. So what's going to happen next time? Oh, next time I'm having a barbecue for 30 people, I'm going to take this whole beef tenderloin, you know? And so you just never know what's going to happen if you're not staying on top of it. And doing that physical inventory and that check against what our perpetual is going to help people realize that you are.
Keeping your employees accountable, holding them accountable.
Yeah.
For either letting you know what's going on, or if you don't happen to be there, leaving notes, whatever the case may be, but and then finding out why, with training, whatever it means.
Absolutely.
But if they know that they're gonna be held accountable.
Yeah.
They're gonna less likely be the ones who are taking things.
How many of you have ever waited tables before? How many of you ever forgot to order something for a table? And what do? You run into the kitchen, you say what? I need this on the fly. I need it like right now. I'll go ring it in just a minute. Just start it, please, right? And then what happens if you don't actually ring it in? And then that item's up on the window, and you're like, oh yeah, So sometimes our servers will do that. Hey, I need this from the bartenders too. Hey, I need a drink. I'll ring it in just a minute, but I just need it right now while I'm standing here. I just forgot. I just remembered I need to get this drink to this table. And then they give a free drink away. Okay, and so it happens. So then maybe training, if we're going to fix this problem where we're five steaks short almost every day, maybe we need to figure out a different process. You cannot release anything unless you have a ticket. Okay, and actually stick to that. So there's lots of different things. Also about holding your employees accountable. When I worked at Chester's Hamburgers at the grill, there was no standardized way to measure out the French fries for the order. The expediter would say you have 5 French fries. And so there was no like, well, just take 3 handfuls because my hand is different from the other person's hand. And so as a grill person, it just took a lot of practice to figure out where on the basket 3 to 5 French fries, was. And so we had a bin. It was the quarter, a 4-inch deep quarter hotel pan. And that bin, every time that the fries were left over after a run, we would clear the French fry bin and throw those away. And so the preps would tell me, hey, David, you were really heavy on those fries. And so I think back, okay, they told me 5 and I did 4 handfuls. So maybe I just need to do 3.5 handfuls the next time, right? So I have to self-regulate. But my boss, my manager, would say, David, how many times did you empty the fry bin today? And I emptied it 4 times. Oh my gosh, that's 4 times. That's a lot of money. You think about it, oh, well, it's just French fries. It's just potatoes. But, think back way back in the very first part of the semester, and we did an exercise where we can save 1 penny in cost on every single guest, like how much that adds up. And so, yeah, it's just potatoes, but communicating that to the grill person, hey, David, this thing right here is actually $10 worth. So that's $40 worth of product that we're just throwing away. We need to control that a little bit better. External security threats, of course, our delivery drivers, we have no control over them. But so what are some concerns with delivery drivers?
Not delivering the order.
Not delivering the order.
The trucks could break down.
The trucks could break down, yeah.
That happened to us actually.
It did? Oh my gosh. So the product was a day late. Did you run out of anything?
Luckily, no. But we were really like pushing the line.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
maintain temperatures.
Good. If they don't maintain the temperatures in that product, we're going to send it back. Well, then now we don't have that product. Okay. So all these different things, sanitation practices, all those different things we have no control over, but we need to check them during that process. Okay. So a lot of this is going to sound familiar because you you should have already taken Chef 1205, Sanitation and Safety, okay? Our storage temperatures, okay? We need to keep, just because it's dry storage, doesn't mean we can let the temperature of our storage room get really high. That can still impact the product, the shelf life of the food and the sanitation of the food. What other examples of storage temperatures?
Like your walk-in cooler.
Good. Your walk-in cooler should be
Below 40, but like.
below 40, ideally below 40, but typically somewhere between 38 to 40, 36 to 40. Okay, we don't want it to get below 32 because it's no longer refrigeration. Now we're getting to the freezer. Okay, and so we want to make sure that we're maintaining that fresh produce. How many of you have ever put your lettuce in your refrigerator and you put it towards the back, and then the next day you get it and it's all like it's all frozen and wilted? Yes.
So I'm kind of like that. At work, we have a freezer, we have a fridge that we kept all our lettuce up in, and then over the last 2 days it turned into a freezer where everything was below 30.
Okay. So it depends on, you think about it, depends on how long that product is in there. If it's just in there for an hour or so, that lettuce is probably not going to be compromised. But if it's below 32, that water content in that lettuce And if the lettuce is already wet on the outside, it's definitely going to deteriorate. And so up in Maine, I had a refrigerator that it was an old refrigerator. The freezer worked great, but the refrigerator section didn't necessarily work all that great. But it still was within, it was maybe a little bit warmer than 40, but I would keep some of my produce in there because it would keep it cooler than room temperature, and it would kind of control that humidity. But depends on what you're storing and where you're storing it. Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm not going to put ground hamburger meat in a refrigerator that's not going to keep it below 40 degrees, okay? Now, as I'm receiving things, is my temperature going to go up on my refrigeration and my freezer?
Yes.
Yeah, right? I'm opening that door constantly. And so that's going to go up, but within 30 minutes to an hour max probably, that's got to get back down into that safe temperature zone. And typically, if you look at a thermometer on a freezer, like the industrial freezers, you're going to see a thermometer like this, and you'll see a green zone, and then you'll see like a red zone. And so it's very easily identified when that black needle, if it's in that zone, then you know you're in good shape. If it's pointing this way and it's in that red zone, then you know that you have an issue, right? And if it's not getting back down into that green zone relatively quickly, then we're going to have an issue, okay? Stock rotation. What is the most popular stock rotation? FIFO, first in, first out, okay? What does LIFO stand for?
Last in, first out.
Last in, first out. That is a stock rotation method, LIFO, where you actually use the freshest product. But what's the issue with that?
Your old product sits.
The older product sits. Okay, so most people use that FIFO method, first in, first out. Okay, and then of course our sanitation practices. What are some examples of sanitation practice when it comes to storage, inventory control in the storage?
Chemicals.
6 inches off the ground.
Chemicals and cleaning supplies are a separate area.
Chemicals and cleaning supplies are separated from the food products. What else?
The order you store.
The order that you store it. Good. Absolutely. So things that are at the top are what? Ready to eat, vegetables, okay? And then on the bottom, your ground meat, okay? And then the whole meats underneath, the whole meats and then the ground meat on the very, very bottom, okay? And poultry. What's that?
Fish on the ice.
Fish is on ice. Absolutely. I was telling the story this weekend at my conference about how I learned the importance of labeling in storage. And how many of you taken the international class in here? International foods? So there's I think it's a Spanish menu. They have the capuchana, which is kind of like ceviche, but it's got oysters and shrimp and squid and octopus, and it's really good. It's awesome. So good. Well, one day, when I was a student here at St. Philip's, I was in the to-go class, which is the Chef 1300. I was in the to-go class, and I was supposed to do the oysters Rockefeller. That was my job for that day. So Tuesday we prepped, and Thursday we served. And so Tuesday, I'm scrubbing all my oysters, and I get a nice Lexan, and I put crushed ice, and I put all my oysters to bed for a couple of days. And then on Thursday, I was eating lunch, and I was like, oh my gosh, this capuchana is so good. I love it. I love these oysters. And then an hour later, I go in to go and make my oysters Rockefeller, and I'm like, where are all my oysters? Well, I didn't label my food. I didn't put David, Chef 1300, Tuesday, Thursday to go class. So some idiot walks in to the freezer, the refrigeration, and sees a box of oysters, and they see a Lexan of oysters on crushed ice, and I guess they just thought that oysters come from the truck on a Lexan of crushed ice, all nice and clean and ready to go, and they took my oysters. I was so pissed. I had to start all over again, right? On the fly, I'm rushing now to get my stuff done because I didn't label. Same thing with our inventory. If we don't label the date, we don't know when it's going to expire, okay? And so labeling is super important. So we talked about a little bit about physical and perpetual inventory. Okay, physical is what we can actually count. How often should you do physical inventory?
Once a week. Twice.
Okay, I've heard once a week, twice a week, every day. Once a week, and then you order based on what you have left to get you back up to par. Okay, good. What else? All those answers are correct. It depends on your operation. Okay? Depends on your operation. If we're realizing that we're short 5 New York strips on a regular basis, maybe we need to do it twice a week. Maybe we need to do it every single day. If we wait a whole month, oh my gosh, now I'm short 200 New York strips. 5 a day times 30 days, that's 150, okay? So we cannot wait. We might do a major inventory once a month. How many of you have ever done inventory before? Right? Ugh, I know, that's usually the comment. It's not easy. If you have a system in place, it can be a little bit easier, but it's so crucial to do that physical inventory, okay? And compare it to our perpetual. So every time a server rings in a stake in the computer system, or every time a server rings in a creme brulee dessert in the system, it automatically updates my perpetual inventory, okay? And then I compare that to my physical inventory. All right. So here's our perpetual inventory. You can see that we can actually put a dollar amount of value to what is in our inventory. If you create an Excel spreadsheet with your entire inventory in it, it's so much easier, it goes so much faster to type in the numbers of what you have and the amount that you paid for it. We'll talk about those in just a moment. Okay, so let's do a quick perpetual inventory. We're not going to take time, let's do one real quick. Okay, so Mallory, give me a number to start with. 5, okay. Oh my gosh. I've misplaced my stylus, so I'm using this pen. It's not as clear as my stylus. Okay, so I start with 5. Gabriel, how many did we receive? 4, okay. Dean, how many did we issue? 3. Okay. And so our ending is, we take our beginning, does this sound familiar? Our beginning inventory plus our purchases plus what we received. So we got 5 plus 4 is 9 minus what we issued. So our ending is 6. Okay. Let's say we just paid $10 to keep our math easy. Okay. We paid $10. So my total in inventory right now is $60. Okay. So now my ending becomes my new start. You see how that works? Okay. Greg, give me a received. 6. All right. Frank, give me an issued.
5.
Okay. Thank you. I thought you were thinking about an issue that you had. Not that issue. Exactly. I got a whole list of them. All right. So 6 plus 6. 12 minus 5. 7. So my ending is 7. And this stays the same. We're going to use that for right now. So now we have our inventory is valued at $70. Okay, you see how this works? Let's do one more. Selena, give me one. 11. We received 11. We got a big party coming up. Okay, so I'm trying to think of your name. Melissa.
There you go.
How many did we issue?
4.
We only issued 4. Okay. So we're preparing for something else in the future. All right, so start. 7 plus 11 is 18.
14.
And we minus 4, we have 14. So now we have $140 in inventory, okay? This is a dollar amount. It's sitting, yeah, maybe we're getting ready for the weekend, right? So this is Friday, we got to get through the weekend. Absolutely, okay? So y'all see how that perpetual inventory works. Good. Okay. So we're going to calculate our inventory values, okay? Now this way we can see our purchases, okay, our opening inventory. We had 2 to begin with, right here. And it has the date along the side to track what we did, what we received. And then each time we added something, that's our purchases. And then we issued, that's our subtraction, okay? We're going to look at this in just a little bit more detail here in just one moment. So different ways that we can actually calculate our inventory value, okay? Our inventory value, FIFO. This gets a little confusing because for FIFO, what does that mean for us for inventory issuing? First in, first out, right? So when we're actually costing out our inventory, when we're putting a value on it, FIFO means we're going to use the latest price, not the oldest price. That's a little confusing. FIFO means on the pricing side, FIFO means that we're going to use the latest price that we paid because it's going to give us a better value of what we're paid, what the value of that product is in today's time. Some things we don't order very often. Sometimes it might be 2 or 3 months before we order something. Okay? I mean, unless you're using, I don't know, salt or like oregano every single day, if you buy a gallon of that dried oregano, that's probably going to last you some time, right? And so that price might fluctuate. And so if you want to actually get a value of that, you're going to use that FIFO method of the latest price. LIFO is the opposite of that. We're going to use the oldest price that we paid, okay, for LIFO. The average price, average is what? Average of all of them, okay? And then the actual price is what we actually paid for it. To give us what is the most, which one of these methods, 1, 2, 3, or 4, which one is the most detailed? The actual price, okay? That's the most detailed, okay? The average price is a little bit more work. FIFO and LIFO are the easiest because it's just you're looking at one number. You can go back to, I can go back to what I received yesterday, and I can say, okay, all the tomatoes in my storage are this price, because that's what I paid for it yesterday. That's using the FIFO method, okay? Now let's look at this from the previous slide, and let's identify what our inventory value is based on these different methods, okay? So, FIFO. What price are we using? The latest price. So what's the latest date? The 28th, and we received them at $21. So FIFO says that everything in our storage right now is $21. What is our ending inventory? How many do we have in inventory? How many total things do we have in inventory? 8. Okay. So we have 8 in our inventory. So 21 times 8 is 160 plus 8. So 168. So we're what? $2 off. This right here is the actual price. That's that actual method we talked about. Okay, see how I put this one right over here? Actual price. This is the actual price of our inventory. So we're off by $2. Okay. If we did LIFO, what's the oldest dollar amount? $20. We see it right here. Okay, that's the oldest that we paid. So let's do LIFO in orange. We have 20. So 20 times 8 is 160. We're $10 off on our inventory. Average price. Okay. So we've got all of the totals right here. So we've got 40. Oops. 40. So we cross that one off. What's next? 40 plus 114 plus 76 plus 176. I hope y'all do this as we go along. Plus 44 plus 126. Gives me what? 616. What number do I divide that by? I gotta do 2, 4, 10, 14, 24, 26, 27, 24, 26, plus 6 is 32. See how much time that takes?
I don't get it.
Because this is $616 worth of cans or whatever we're doing right now, and there's 2 of them. There's 2 here, there's 2 here, there's 6 there, there's 4, there's 8, there's 2 and 6.
Oh, so you added those up to get the 32.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've got 32 actual items. It's not just 7 numbers that I've added. It's 32 items. And so what is our total?
$19.
Okay, so 19.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. $19.25 is the cost per can, whatever we're talking about right now. And now we multiply that by our 8, and you can see it's going to be a little bit less. 19.25 is going to be less than the 20. Okay? So, which one is the most detailed? The actual, right? But if I have a spreadsheet, an Excel, or if I have some kind of property management system that can manage my inventory, then this actual can be done. Okay? If not, FIFO or LIFO is the easiest way. Okay?
What situations would you decide to use the actual or the FIFO or the?
So I would say things that like meat. If meat is fluctuating, then I would, based on what I have left in my inventory, I might use the FIFO because I'm gonna pay the most recent price for meat. Okay. If it's something that's a dry good, I might be able to do an actual inventory because sometimes it's easier, especially if it's a product that we have more of that we use less often. It's easier to do that actual it's easier just to use the FIFO because you're going to have a lot of that product and you might have been receiving it along the way. Whereas the things that we move really quickly, we might want to actually use the actual for that. Because especially if it's our high ticket price items or if costs are changing, then that's what's going to help us identify what the value of our inventory is. All right. So extending and totaling. So just basically what we did with that one item, you would do for your entire inventory. Right? That's why technology is your friend. Okay? There's a really cool thing for the bar that we'll talk about in the beverage chapter. And it's a really cool application that you can use on the smartphone that actually helps keep track of your bar inventory. It's really cool. We'll watch a video on that. But we get a total of what our inventory is. And then we can add it all up, and that's what our inventory value is. That is our physical inventory. Okay? Our physical inventory. So to calculate our inventory turnover, we need 2 different numbers. Okay? Well, I think we actually need 3 different numbers. We need our average inventory. And what goes on top? Not cost per unit. Check your book. We're towards the end of the PowerPoint, so it's towards the end of the chapter. The cost of goods sold. divided by our average inventory. So how do we get our average inventory? It's a great question. I'm glad you asked. Okay. What is an average? Okay, we add it together and then divide by the number that we have, right? So in this case, our average is our inventory. So what two types of inventory? We talked about perpetual and physical, yes. But there's two different inventories we talked about. Opening and closing. So we have opening inventory plus our closing inventory, and we divide it by 2. Why 2? Because we have two numbers. We have an opening and a closing. And that average inventory tells us on hand about how much dollar amount in inventory we've had on average throughout the month or throughout the period. Okay, it can be a week, it can be a day, it can be whatever. Okay. Cost of goods sold. Raise your hand if that looks semi-familiar. Semi-familiar. Okay. I know we talked about it in a previous chapter, before midterms, before yesterday. Okay, so I know that it probably isn't fresh on your mind, but that cost of goods sold, what is our formula for cost of goods sold? So we take our beginning inventory. What do we do with our purchases? Do we add or subtract them? We add them. We add all of our purchases for the period. And that gives us our total available inventory. That means during that period, we had this total dollar amount of inventory to use. Okay? Now, after I actually go and do a physical inventory, I subtract that. Oops. So I subtract my ending inventory. Because remember, I haven't used it yet. If it's still in my storage, I haven't used it yet. And it only becomes part of my food cost when what? When I issue it. It only becomes part of my food cost once I issue it, okay? And that is our cost of goods sold. There are some practices. There's some Excel practice sheets for cost of goods sold, as well as average inventory and inventory turnover, okay? So our cost of goods sold is our beginning inventory plus our purchases. That's our total available, but we haven't used some of it yet, and so we've got to subtract that. And what's left over is the cost of our goods sold. So this just says what we sold. This is the dollar amount that it cost us to produce that. What do we use this number for? What do we use that cost of goods sold for? Besides the average inventory, the inventory turnover formula. That's how we figure out our food cost. We can take our sales, we can take our dollar amount off of our point of sales. We can take that, run that report. We can figure out what we sold, calculate what it cost us to produce that, and then that gives us our food cost percentage. The interesting thing about this, I can't just take, oh, I sold 35 New York strips, and so I can't just take the cost of 35 New York strips and divide it by the sales for 35 New York strips, because what if 5 of my strips have walked away? That means I only have product, my cost is for 40 steaks, but I only sold 35 of them. That's going to affect my food cost percentage. That's why we do this formula, rather than just take that perpetual, oh yeah, this is what I sold, this was the ingredient cost for everything that I sold today, this is the dollar amount, I divide it, that's my food cost percentage. No. Going in and actually taking our inventory is going to give us that actual dollar amount, what's left over, okay? We may say that we sold 40 servings of tortilla soup, but if that person wasn't using the proper ladle and they were serving too much, right, then we might go through 45 servings worth of product, but we only sold 40 servings, right? And so that's why we do this actual formula, this actual physical inventory. That's why it's so crucial. Any questions, comments, concerns about that? In this food cost and the receiving, storing, and issuing. Okay? Anybody have experience with controlling food costs or instances where you actually have seen where food is being wasted?
Oh yeah, all the time.
You all the time. Oh my gosh. What examples of food being wasted?
I can't believe breakfast in the morning. People make their the eggs too soon before we can get the other stuff out, so they get cold, and then they're cold, and if you try to put them back on to reheat them, they get overdone.
Gotcha. Okay.
Throw away those eggs.
Got throw those eggs away. Good. Anybody else? So there's a process to that, right? So get everything else ready, and then do the eggs maybe last or in that order. Good.
Waste control sheets.
Good. Waste control sheets. Okay. So as we're issuing that, and as we're using that product, I think we'll talk about that in the next chapter about using those waste controls so we can actually see what we're wasting. Good.
Sometimes if I don't like what's in the cafeteria, I just make something.
You just make your own. Okay. So if you don't like what's in the cafeteria as a cook, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna make my own stuff. Well, you're using product that should be used for things that we're selling, right? And so, or you might make your own food and then just, there might be an instance where you can do an employee meal, where you can pay a discounted price for it, things like that. So all that goes into that calculations of all of that. Any other questions? Yes?
I don't pay for food.
Here we go. Another example is when meat butchers, when if you're not experienced enough, throw away a whole bunch of meat.
Good. So if you don't have that training as we're actually preparing it, then you're going to be possibly throwing away product. Think about when y'all are in basic skills. Okay, when you were butchering a chicken, did you get it perfect the first time? Of course you did, Moses. Right? And so sometimes you're just like, oh my gosh, the first time. So my boss up in Maine, one time she said, she comes up to me and she says, my husband really likes Thanksgiving dinner. Of course it's June. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. We can do a Thanksgiving dinner next week. That's no worries. I'll prepare a Thanksgiving dinner for 60 people. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. And so I put 4 turkeys in the oven. I had 4 16-pound turkeys. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't know how to carve a turkey. My dad always did that. It's very similar to deboning a chicken. So I watched a couple of YouTube videos on it, and oh my gosh, it is actually pretty easy to debone a turkey after you've cooked it, and then make it look all pretty and presentable and all that kind of stuff. So now, of course, I'm the one who carves the turkey at Thanksgiving. But I was like, if before that, I would have been hacking into that thing, and I probably would have wasted a whole lot of meat. But after the training, I was able to actually do it in a nice, presentable way. I mean, taking the meat off the thigh bone. I mean, all that stuff. I'm like, I wouldn't know how to do that if I hadn't watched that video and hadn't learned. So yes, sir.
Also, another big one is the if you don't keep up with your labeling in your refrigerator and the inspectors come through, they'll make you toss it.
Okay, yeah. So if it's expired, if it's past the date,
Yes.
absolutely.
It's not labeled.
Or if it's not labeled, good, yeah.
Or in this in general, we keep a lot of food in the same table. At the end of the night, we throw it away. So if we make a lot, which we usually do, just throw it away.
Absolutely, that's a very good point. My sister worked for, I can't remember if I told you this or not, but my sister worked for Little Caesars when I was younger. She was in high school, and she was the manager of the Little Caesars. and this girl made crazy bread. This person called in like 15 minutes before, ordered an order of crazy bread, and because this girl had been trained to just put a whole tray in the oven, she put a whole tray of oven of crazy bread, and she needed one order. And my sister's like, "What did you do?" Of course, we were happy because she brought us home crazy bread. We're like, she can make that mistake any day. And so, but that product that's wasted that we didn't sell. And think about crazy bread. Holy cow! How much do they charge for that now? And it's just bread. It's flour and yeast. Okay. I mean, bread, things like soda, bread, those low cost items, we want to be selling those because that's going to help us with our profit. Okay. Yes.
When I used to work at Dough Brothers, they used to make us throw the food away at the end of the night. I never knew why though. We couldn't take it home. They would make us throw the pies away. Everything.
Well, and that
I heard
prevents.
a lot of the meats is like really low quality.
Yeah,
that's why they don't keep it.
Well, and it kind of prevents that over ordering, right? So if you think, oh, well, if I order 2 extra pies than what I need, I'll have them left over so my staff can take them home, then that kind of perpetuates that thought process of over ordering. So, what's that? Yeah, it's basically stealing, like planning ahead to take stuff home. Absolutely. Okay.
I don't get it. It is.
Yeah, it is, and with the topic of food waste, there's so much, especially with, I mean, we just left October, which is Food Insecurity Month, and so working with food banks, there's oftentimes there's more regulations that could potentially. Let's see how I'm thinking. There's more regulations that make it more challenging just to donate that product to a nonprofit. And so, I mean, even like as a caterer, when we did catered events, somebody said we're gonna have 200 people here and 75 people show up. They got 125 people's worth of food. They were able to take that, but they had to sign a waiver to say that they left it in their car overnight. And then they go and they're like, that brisket looks real good, and they eat it and get sick. It's not my fault because we've kept it temperature controlled in all that process, right? So we've done our part as a caterer. There's a lot of things that you can do, but also the transportation to and from and things like that. It definitely gets a little dicey and challenging.
Yeah,
So.
I know my father-in-law works at H-E-B in Uvalde, so it's a smaller town, right? But they throw away cases of meat and sausage and just different things. And he's asked before, like, well, why can't you donate it? Apparently there was some kind of lawsuit from them donating it to like a local food bank that is preventing them now from donating all that meat because they want to avoid that potential
Lawsuit. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's sad because it's some cases of this.
Yeah.
There was this one show that we watched in our nutrition class.
Yeah.
And the whole show it was I think they went either 6 months, 9 months, or a year on just eating expired food that was thrown away from like their local supermarket. I'm talking about, and it was just like once the bananas start browning, they put them under. Once just everything that was just barely going out of date.
Yeah.
Man, they had so much food that they were giving it. Their friends were coming over and getting their food. They gained a bunch of weight though because a lot of it was like pasta.
Yeah.
A lot of starchy food. But
yeah.
But
interesting.
They lived for free. They did not spend a single. I think they saved like, or they even made like 20,000.
Wow.
I don't know. It wasn't.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yep. There's a lot of people that live and survive out of what people waste out of garbage cans.
Yeah.
You get in trouble. They have to kind of.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
There's the documentary with a group of people in New York that'll literally at the end of the night they'll go and dig through the bags of the restaurants and they'll get produce, bread, and it's all still pretty good, but they're pretty much digging through the trash.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why them rats are so big over there.
It is.
They're bigger than possums.
All right. So next.